everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and today I'm going to be talking about all the books I read in the month of November. November was a trash reading month for me, I'm not gonna lie. I really didn't have that many books that sparked a ton of joy. I went through like a 2-week period where I just wasn't really reading anything because I was just in a funk mentally because of reading, but also just like life. I don't know. I don't even really know what happened, to be honest. I was also doing NaNoWriMo this month, kind of. I set a goal. Oh, if you don't know what NaNoWriMo is, it is National Novel Writing Month. And so the challenge every year in November is to write 50,000 words towards a novel. I knew there was absolutely no way with a full-time job and reading and a YouTube channel and a life that I would be able to write 50,000 words, and I really didn't want to sacrifice anything to try to make that happen. And so I was doing like a mini NaNoWriMo where my goal was to write 20,000 words, and I ended up writing about like 5,000 or 6,000, and that I think is what sent me in the funk, honestly. Like forcing myself to try to write all the time was very stressful and not fun and didn't make it enjoyable, and so I decided to stop doing that because it was just ruining everything around me. Out of this month, there are like 2 books that will stick with me that I had a good time with. Other than that, it was just kind of a crapshoot. That being said, maybe take these reviews with a grain of salt, because when you're not in a good space mentally and you're reading, it can kind of affect your experience with the book. So some of these books I may have enjoyed more if I was in a better space. But anyways, all that being said, we'll just jump on into talking about the books. I DNF'd a couple books. I have a couple vlogs dedicated to some of the books I read, so it shouldn't take too long to get through the stack. I ended up fully reading 7 books this month and I DNF'd 2, but then I also had like a phase where I read a bunch of books and just DNF'd them, but like I don't count as a DNF. I don't know. We're just gonna jump on into it because this is taking forever. So starting with the books that I DNF'd, first book that I DNF'd this month was Little Women. I had full intentions to do a full reading vlog, reading this book, watching the movie for the first time, maybe watching multiple versions of the movie because I know there are multiple adaptations out there that exist. I read the first 2 or 3 chapters and that was it. That was my experience with this book. That's all that happened. You probably could not pay me to pick this up and read this in this past month. I had no desire at all whatsoever to read it. I started it and I was like, where's the plot? Where's the plot? Is this just characters and vibes? I think it might be. And so I couldn't get hooked into this story. I just didn't care. The length too was just intimidating me. Like if this was a regular sized book, maybe there would have been a world that I would have read at least a little bit more than like 2 or 3 chapters. I mean, I hardly even cracked this open. But yeah, this did not happen this month. Will it ever happen? Honestly, I don't know. Like I can't see myself being in the mood for this book now that I know what it's like. I would rather just watch the movie. But then if I like really love the movie, then maybe I would want to pick the book up. But even then, didn't happen this month. Probably will never happen again. The next book that I DNF'd this month was my in-person book club pick for the month. And I really try to read those no matter what. But this book, I could not read it. And that is The Last Flight by Julie Clark. This is a thriller about this woman who is married to this abusive man, and she has been secretly planning how to get out of her marriage with him and run away from him. He is very rich and prestigious and in politics, and so it's gonna be this whole big thing. She's had to very carefully curate her way out of this marriage. She's got this whole plan developed for how she's secretly gonna get away, but then things start to go awry. A package gets delivered to him before it's supposed to. It's not supposed to even go to him. Like he's gonna figure out what's going on. And so when she's at the airport, she meets this other woman who is also in a situation where she's just trying to like run away from her life. And so they end up switching plane tickets, and now she's gonna go to Puerto Rico or Costa Rica or something, wherever this lady was supposed to go, and that lady is going to get on her flight to Ohio or wherever it is that she was supposed to go, and that will be her way out now. So she does that, but then that woman's plane who took her ticket crashes, and now she really doesn't have a plan for what she's gonna do in Puerto Rico because she doesn't have all her things set up like she did. I read the first little bit of this book. I read the first 66 pages, and that was pushing it, honestly, for me. I didn't like it, really. I didn't like the writing. I thought the characters were super stereotypical or archetypal. The husband was just like this evil, evil villain in a way that was just not enough character depth there for me. And all the characters just felt very thin, very thinly written, very just archetypal characters. They just felt like characters, you know, they didn't feel like people. And while the storyline sounded exciting, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting in terms of the thriller twisty aspects of it, at least how it was being set up. It just wasn't exactly what I was expecting, and yeah, I just didn't really like it. And so I didn't finish it. I didn't even go to the book club this month because I felt bad for not finishing it, but that was that. And then I also had a bunch of books that I just kept picking up when I was going through a reading slump, trying to just find anything that would spark joy and make me like reading again and get really engrossed in a book. So these aren't necessarily DNFs. They're just books I picked up this month and read some of, but didn't continue to pursue this month. But I have plans for reading these probably at some point. The first one is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. This one I didn't read that much of. I only read the first 38 pages. This is a fake dating romance story about this woman who works with this guy, and he is very grumpy and she is sunshine, and she has to fly to Spain for her sister's wedding, or someone in her family. Yeah, her sister's wedding. And she said she was bringing her American boyfriend. Uh-oh, she doesn't have an American boyfriend. Who's she gonna bring? It's gonna be this grumpy dude who jumps in to go. So far, I'm not loving it. Like, it didn't grab me with the characters. It's just another kind of case where they just feel like characters written on that page, and I wasn't like convinced of them as like a human. I know they're not really humans anyway, but like I wasn't engrossed in the story. It wasn't captivating me immediately. So far, it's just been like a lot of dialogue, which I think will be fun when I get to more of the banter part between them. But right now, it's just the setup of the story, and I don't know. I'm starting to like not be in the mood for these kind of summery vacation stuff because it is winter time and like I've decorated my house for Christmas now, and so I'm kind of in the mood for more like cozy, warm, wintry stories. And so I don't know if I'm gonna pick this back up in December, or maybe this will be like a later kind of read. But I know everybody's really hyping this up on TikTok. People are loving it on BookTube and Bookstagram as well. So I'm definitely still interested. I'm still gonna read it, but I don't know if I'm gonna pick it up right now. The next one I picked up was one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that is Faye Far Away by Helen Fisher. This is a sort of, I don't really know how to classify the genre. It's just like a literary fiction, a bit historical vibes in there. It's about this woman who ends up getting transported back in time, and she gets to meet her younger self and her mother, and she's like back in time with them. Her mom died when she was 8 years old, so she didn't really get the chance to know her mother as an adult, and so this is her chance to be like back in time, getting to see what her mom is like. It sounds like a really good read for November, and I really don't have any complaints about it yet. I am not that far into this one either, just at page 47, so just a couple of chapters in. Yeah, no complaints. I like it. I like the way it's written. I like the characters. It feels like it's gonna be heartfelt and emotional. I think I was just in a sad mood already, and so I didn't want to be more sad, and so I haven't picked this one back up yet, but I think I'm gonna read this one into December as well. So I expect to be picking this one up again very soon. And then the other book's kind of a wild card, and that is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This is the fourth book in the ACOTAR series. I read those for the first time this year. I think I started them in the spring and have been kind of catching up on them throughout the year. This one, I haven't felt a lot of draw to pick it back up after the series kind of ends on the third book, and then there's a 3.5 little novella, and then this book begins to kind of change the series. You start to follow a different character, and this kind of starts her story, and so I haven't felt a lot of draw to pick it up because you're not necessarily left on cliffhangers. I mean, there's definitely things in the story that you can see how they're going to be picked back up and developed, but it wasn't like I was dying to read this because I knew it was going to be a whole different thing, and this is the most recent installment, and so I don't have anything like after this to get excited about. If this ends on a cliffhanger, I can't pick up the next book yet because it's not out yet, and so for a couple months I just haven't been as excited about it as I was when I was initially reading the series. But it felt like this would be a good book to pick up while I was in a reading slump because these are like comfort characters. I know the characters, I know what I'm getting into. I can just pick it back up and get into it, and I've been right about that so far. It's been a good time. I am fairly into this one too. I just at page 62, so I've read about 60 pages of all these books, but I'm enjoying it so far. It's sucked me in. I think I just picked this up yesterday or something. I haven't been reading it for a long time, but I'm definitely going to keep reading this one. I'm sure I'll finish this in December because I'm just interested in it right now. So unless I lose interest again, I expect to be reading this one next month. Okay, so now we can jump into the books that I actually did read all the way through in November. And the first one that we can start with is Ghosts of Harvard by Francesca Saratella. This is a book I've owned for a long time. One of my friends on Bookstagram, it is her favorite book. like ever, and so I've always had it on my radar. I've had it on my shelves for years. It's just a thicker book, and so I haven't been super drawn to read it because of that, but I figured October, November, this kind of season would be a good time of the year to read it. So I started in October, but I finished it in November, and this is one where I landed around like a 3-star with it. I really liked the beginning of this story, but then towards the middle and the end, it started to fall apart for me. I kind of just wish it wasn't as long. I feel like if it would have been shorter, I would have enjoyed it even more. And then, as the title implies, there's ghosts in this story, and that part didn't really work for me. So this is a story about this girl who is grieving the loss of her brother. He went off to Harvard for school. While he was there, he developed schizophrenia, and then he ended up killing himself. But she doesn't really believe that he killed himself, or she doesn't fully accept and understand why he would have. And so now she is retracing in his footsteps. She's going off to Harvard. She wants to kind of try to figure out what happened in her brother's life, the research work he was doing, the friends he had, the roommate he had, like just try to piece together what happened in a way to gain some kind of closure. But then when she gets there and she starts doing that, she starts hearing voices herself. And then she's getting really paranoid, wondering if she's also developing schizophrenia, wondering if ghosts are real, wondering what happened to him, and just piecing together the mystery of her brother's loss. So it started out so strong. I really liked it in the beginning. I think the writing was great. The writing was great throughout. I liked the writing. I would read from this author again. I'm pretty sure this is her debut book. The atmosphere was great. The grief was so strong throughout the story. Like you could really feel it in the words. And so I really liked it at the beginning part, but it just went on for so long, and there were just some elements that I didn't fully expect and understand. Like there's this romance kind of thing happening, there's these ghost things happening, and there's like multiple different ways you can do a ghost story. You can do ghosts that are like scary, you can do ghosts where it's like, is it ghosts, are those real, kind of bordering the line of is it paranormal or is it a normal situation and something's happening. It was also kind of that tension with not knowing if she was hearing ghosts or if she was developing schizophrenia. And then I'm like, what are we doing with the mental health kind of aspect of the story? Like, where are we going with this? I got a little nervous. So it just kind of started to fall apart there. But the way that the ghosts were done, I just didn't love. There's a lot of the ghosts story within this book, and I just didn't care as much. I think at the end too, there's an author's note or something. I remember reading something at the end where she talks about the ghosts and the purpose that they served and how they all actually represent real people, and kind of explains the stories of what happened there. And so I think that's really interesting, but I think that probably could have been done with one ghost instead of 3, where you're learning 3 different ghost stories, because they all are like bringing the same theme to light. So yeah, I think it was just a little bit too much for me on the ghost aspect, but it was still a good book. I still really like the writing. I would definitely read from this author again, and a 3-star is not a terrible rating. So I did think it was a good autumnal read. It just wasn't the perfect book. Next up, I picked up a couple short novellas, because when you're in a reading slump, novellas are the way to go, because it's just like a quick little thing. It gives you the satisfaction of finishing a book, and it can maybe help spark interest in reading again. That was definitely true for one of them. The other one, not so much. So the one that I liked was A Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. I have read from this author before. I read one of her novels, The Once and Future Witches, but I actually ended up DNFing it about halfway through because it was just so much. Like, you know when you eat a dessert that is so rich that you can't finish it, no matter how good it is, you just know there's no way I can eat this all in one sitting? That's how that book was for me. The writing was so rich and so beautiful, and I loved it, but I couldn't keep reading it. It was just too much. And so I was pretty excited to see that this author was coming out with a novella, because I thought this was gonna fix all my problems. Like, in a short little bite-sized format, I should love this story, and I did. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This is the start of a series that are fairy tale inspired with a spin on things, and I'm very excited to keep reading these books because this one was so much fun. I love the quirky characters. I loved the fairy tale aspect of the story and how it was kind of spun on its head. So this is a story about this girl named Zinnia Gray, who has this chronic condition that some other young people have, and no one has ever lived past, I think, the age of 21, and she is turning 21 now, and so it's a very special birthday to her because it's the last one she'll ever have. Like, she's pretty sure, and doctors are pretty sure, that she is going to die pretty soon. And so her best friend Charm is determined to make it a great birthday. They go to this tower in town and they're just having a good time, but there is a spindle there that she ends up pricking her finger on, and it transports her into this different world with this different kind of princess who is in her own dreadful situation. So this is a Sleeping Beauty kind of retelling, and when she meets this other princess, she is also super desperate to escape her fate of being stuck marrying this man she doesn't want to marry. And so you see them kind of come together and try to help each other out, and it's so fun. Like, it's very short, but it's a very fun, fast-paced story. It's just like the perfect pacing, the perfect amount of action. The characters are so quirky and so fun. If you like Shauna Maguire's Every Heart a Doorway, the Wayward Children series, I think you would like this. It's not the same, but it has a lot of those same qualities where it's just like quirky and whimsical and Portal World and just kind of fun and really sharp, witty humor throughout. So yeah, I said this was a 4-star, but honestly, maybe it's more like a 5. I don't know. It's just like rare for novellas to be a full 5, but I really don't have any complaints about this. I really liked it, and I'm excited to keep reading the rest of the books in the series. I actually don't know what the next book is supposed to be, if it follows these same characters or if it does a different kind of spin-off, so I'll have to look into that. But either way, I'm excited. The other novella that I read that I didn't love as much was Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine M. Valenti. This is a horror novella, kind of. It's kind of a thriller. It's kind of hard to categorize. I don't know. It's just kind of like a weird, eerie suspense novella. The synopsis of this is super vague, and that's definitely purposeful. Like, this is one of those books that the whole time you're reading it, you're trying to figure out what you're reading and what's really going on, and so it creates this like eerie suspense kind of feel. But you're following this woman who is married to this man, and she thinks that she was made for him and that they're a perfect couple and everything is great. But obviously everything's not so great. He's gone a lot, he travels a lot, and he won't let her in the basement. Like, she's not allowed to go see what's in the basement. And then also everyone in the community that they live in kind of gives her eyes, or it's like they're trying to tell her something and she doesn't really know what's happening. And this neighborhood they live in is very strange. Like, throughout the story you get little excerpts throughout that are the community rules. And so it starts with a list of 7 rules, like no outdoor cooking, ovens, grills, smoke pits, or other open fires, no overnight guests, keep sidewalks free of clutter, including but not limited to chalk drawings, handprints, mimetic representations of any kind, sporting equipment, stray rubbish, unsightly leaves, blah, 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 blah. So like, some rules are kind of normal, but as the story goes on, they get more absurd and weird, and it's like, what's going on in this community? And so that's really all I can tell you about the plot of the book. It's like creepy, you don't know what's going on, she doesn't know what's going on, and the story unfolds from there. I would really recommend this to you if you really liked The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. It reminded me a lot of The Echo Wife throughout. I didn't really like The Echo Wife, and I didn't really like this. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. It was just kind of like a 3-star for me. It was fine. I thought the concept was cool. In the end, what ends up being revealed and what's really going on in the story was interesting, but I didn't particularly think the execution was amazing. I was just sort of left feeling like, okay, that's fine. Like, I read it all in one sitting and I was like, all right, that was an okay novella. So it didn't really leave an impact on me. Definitely not a new favorite. Don't hate it, don't love it. Just kind of thought it was okay. But if you do like The Echo Wife, then I would recommend picking this one up because I see a lot of similarities between those 2 stories. And then the rest of the books that I have to talk about, I have documented in reading vlogs, so I won't need to spend a ton of time on them. The first one I did a full dedicated video to, and that is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is the romance book of the moment. If you have not seen this book recommended to you, I don't know what corner of the internet you're hiding in, but this book is everywhere. It's all over TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and people who don't even read romance are loving this book. And so I decided to continue my series of TikTok Made Me Read It and did a full reading vlog dedicated to this book. So if you want to see my full thoughts and reactions and my journey with this book while I was reading it, definitely go check out that video. But from a high level view of how I feel about this book, it definitely did not live up to the hype. It was pretty ridiculous, and you have to suspend your disbelief a lot to enjoy the story, which is like fine. Sometimes I'm okay with that, but a lot of it was just a silly, goofy time. Like, the definition of this book is it's a silly, goofy time, and you have to be there for a silly, goofy time. This is also based on a fan fiction of Kylo Ren. I know nothing about that, so if that is what excites people about this, I didn't get that element because I have no idea what's even going on there. But yeah, overall, didn't really live up to the hype. It was kind of fun. I kind of had a good time with it, but in the end, it was is just another 3-star. It's pretty forgettable. It didn't really leave a lasting impact. And for people to be talking about how steamy this book is, there's only one steamy scene. It's a long one, but there's only one. I expected there to be more. You know what I mean? So yeah, 3 stars. And then the last 3 books that I have are all books that were recommended to me by you guys. So I did a video where I read my subscribers' book recommendations and I ended up reading these 3 books. That video should have just came out like a day or 2 ago. So go check it out if you haven't yet. But I will give you quick reviews of these 3 books. So the first one was In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. This book has been recommended to me more than any other book has ever been recommended to me ever. It's also a thriller that I have seen so many people loving and talking about this year, and then so many people were recommending it to me, and so I thought it was gonna go one of 2 ways. I was either gonna love it or I was gonna be super disappointed. And I was pretty disappointed with this one. It was definitely not a 5-star for me. It was more like a 3 or a 3.5. I thought it was fine. It's like a dark academia type of story about this group of friends who, when they were all in school together, one of their friends died, another one of them got kind of accused of the murder, and then it's now many years later, they're at their college reunion and they're piecing together what actually happened and who actually murdered their friend. I have a lot of like specific thoughts and I talk a lot about that in that reading vlog, so I would definitely just recommend checking that out for my whole like pros and cons, what were the good things, what were the not great things. But yeah, this book just didn't do it for me like it's doing it for everyone else. I will say the more time has passed and I think about this book, I do think it was a good thriller. Like, it was not a bad story. It was just very, very overhyped for me. But when I think about it and what happened and how all the pieces and the clues were laid out and how it all connected and how all these motives came together, like, it was a very well crafted thriller. It just wasn't the most exciting thriller for me. The next book was Mrs. March by Virginia Fato. This is a book that I just picked up on a whim. I hadn't heard anything about it. I had no idea what it was going to be. I kind of thought it was going to be a mystery based off of the look of the book and a bit of the synopsis of the book. So this is about this unnamed woman named Mrs. March who is married to this guy George March, and he is an author and he has just written another great best-selling book. And in that book, his main character is super terrible. Like, she's insufferable, she's described as a whore, she's just not likable. And then Mrs. March hears from other people that they think that that character was inspired by her. So she's deeply offended by that, and then that kind of sends her on this tailspin descent into madness. And that's really what the story is. It's really not a mystery, a suspense, a thriller. It is just a story of a woman descending into madness. I have a lot of complex thoughts about this one too. Reasons I like it, reasons I don't. It ended up being like a 3-star for me because in ways it was a 2-star, but in other ways it was a 4-star. So I don't really know how to articulate my thoughts about this without talking for a very long time. So would also just say, go check out the vlog. But high level, it's just like a weird, absurd book. Nothing happens. It's a character study. It's not a plot-driven action book, but it is kind of like compulsively readable. Like, you can't stop reading because you are trying to parse what this woman's reality is, because she does not have a grip on her reality at all, and neither do you, and so you're just in for the ride with her. And then the last book I read in that blog was Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This was one of my most anticipated books of the year because I loved The House at the Cerulean Sea so much last year. This book's very different from that book, and so it would be very unfair to compare them. TJ Klune's written a lot of books. These aren't the only 2 books that he's written. I think they're the only 2 adult books he's written, which is why people compare them so much, but it's very, very different. This is a more sad book. It follows this guy, Wallace Price, who is a jerk. He's like a lawyer. He is really mean. He doesn't have a great life, and he dies right at the beginning of the story. And then he is brought to this tea shop where this guy Hugo works, and he is a ferryman, and so he like ferries people to the next afterlife. So it's kind of like a little stopping post as you're figuring things out before you move along your way to whatever is beyond the door. So I ended up giving this book like a 3-star. We had lots of 3 stars this month. It was fine. The beginning was good, like the first little bit. The last 100 pages are the best part of this book. That was when I was really sucked in and finally was like loving the story. But the middle part is really drawn out, really long, and like nothing is happening for a very long time. There's just absolutely no plot. It's just vibes. So if you like those kind of stories, then I think you would enjoy this more, but I was just kind of bored the whole time and pushing myself through until I finally got to those last 100 pages where there was action and high stakes and tension and oh my gosh, what are the characters gonna do? And that's finally when I felt like I was reading a story. So by the end, was it worth it? I don't know. I probably would like this even less if I hadn't already gotten an attachment to TJ Klune's writing style from loving The House of the Cerulean Sea so much. So if this is your first book from TJ Klune, don't let that influence your thoughts about the other one, because they're just very different and they're very hard to compare. But I'm still glad I read it, and I will still be picking stuff up from TJ Klune in the future. So that is it for all of the books that I read this month, or DNF'd this month. Not my best month, also not my worst month. June was way worse than this. In June I only read 4 books, and I don't think I liked any of them. But out of this month, I at least had a couple reads that I will remember and that I'm excited about, particularly a Spindle Splintered. I would say this was my highlight of the month. This story was just so engaging, so fun, so fast-paced, and just a really good setup to a series. I am just so excited to continue reading these books. They're just quirky and fun and light, and it was a good time. And then despite not giving it the highest praise or it living up to all the hype, I do still like In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I think it was a good thriller. I don't think it's the best thriller I've read this year, but it's probably in like the top 12 or so, which may not seem like a great rating, but I think a lot of people will enjoy this. I think I was just really critical because I was expecting this like masterpiece of a thriller, and it was just kind of fine. But I do think this was this author's debut, and I will definitely be looking forward to the next book that she comes out with, because it was a well-crafted thriller and it's a new author to have on the radar. So that is it for me. Wasn't the best reading month. I hope you had a better reading month than I did. If you did, comment down below. Let me know. What were the great books that you read this month? Because I need something great. I had a whole TBR plan for the end of the year, and I think that kind of threw me off too, because I felt like these are the books I have to be reading, and so I'm kind of just scrapping the rest of my end of the year TBR, and I'm just gonna be mood reading whatever I want for the rest of the year. So I'm excited to see how December shakes out. Hopefully we'll have some better reads that month. I'm gonna be reading some Christmas romances, hopefully some thrillers, with the next round of the Thrill Till the Weekend readathon going on. So I'm excited. It's gonna be a better month. I am manifesting it now, and it will be a better reading month. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye!